Hey everybody. All right. As you can see, I finally brought this lighting situation into the big leagues. Shout out to my boy, Noah Ennis. Get to 50 and see where we go from there. Wave right back to you, Jared. Okay. All right, here we go, guys. First off, the topic that we got to discuss, California, Los Angeles, is the California dream, guys. California seems to have been the success story of the first round of the COVID virus. The numbers are just undeniable at this point. Not to do a victory dance, obviously, it's a very serious scenario and serious issue, but I kind of called it that we were going to peak somewhere in the range of April 7th to April 14th, and that's clearly what's happening. If we want to look at the data from some stuff from California and Los Angeles, okay, and this guy Ralph, who, like I said, originally I had got in touch with on Lakers stuff, but he's done incredible reporting on the California situation. Look right there. We've got Dr. Birx, California, Washington, and Oregon, the three states that we can learn from, really been the three success stories of this first round of the COVID virus. Gavin Newsom had kind of made an offhand, and I think not particularly. So Newsom said the other day, after I had been giving Newsom a lot of credit, I thought he was speaking very sincerely and in a sophisticated manner to people. I'm not going to hold it too much against him, but he kind of had a misstep in making just an absolutely ridiculous claim. And that ridiculous claim was that California was going to peak sometime in mid-May. That's just absurd. We've seen now the numbers have flattened out. Daily infections is flattened out. Deaths is flattened out. The ICU numbers, which I'll show you in a second, are looking very bright. We have, once again, California before this situation, when the situation started, had ICU capacity of 4,000 ICUs. I think it's gone up since then. It's probably closer to 6,000 now. But that's kind of where when you start to be concerned is when you're reaching ICU capacity. We've stayed, right in and around. Let me get to this. Right in and around 1,000 in ICUs statewide. Hold on one second. So this is California right now. Well, as of April 9th, which was yesterday, I don't know why his numbers are a little outdated, but whatever. 19,472 positive cases. Those ICU numbers, 1,145, and that's with a lot of people. So that's not just total of who's gone into ICU, but it's also keeping in mind who's been removed from ICU. So at this point, 1,145, and we have a 4,000 ICU capacity. Absolutely, without a doubt, we have so much slack there. So, at this point, it's just undeniable. Like I said, we've expanded testing by an order, about 9x, 10x, and the positive cases did not run wild. So anyone who was thinking, oh my God, there are all these positive cases being hidden and they're going to get revealed as soon as we test, that turned out not to be true. That's not what happened. So California's in great shape. At this point, it's just undeniable. And so Newsom, and we'll get to why I think he said what he said and why he's already walked it back in a minute or two. But yeah, peak in mid-May, that's ridiculous. It's not happening. But the rest of, this is the LA Times, but everyone is kind of starting to take note of why California is the success story. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so Christina Gailey, the director of the LA County Department of Health Services, we went ahead. California went ahead and implemented aggressive social distancing, and when it did so, it had done so at a point before the virus had broken out. Okay, so that's really important, right? It's not like social distancing can kind of turn a bad situation into a good one, or at least not very quickly. But the fact that we did it so early on, before the virus had broken out, really had a cascading impact, and is why 80% of the hospitals statewide are ghost towns right now. I can tell you that the Kaiser Permanente and their network are sending nurses home. They're furloughing nurses because they don't have enough patients and they don't have enough work for them, which is just crazy. Okay, so then, we're here today in the midst of all this good news. Sorry. In the midst of all this good news, we have Los Angeles County extends stay-at-home order through May 15th. Okay, so if we're getting all this good news, why are they extending the stay-at-home order? Wouldn't the good news, kind of suggest that we should be back to real life, or at least to reopening the economy sometime soon? Not necessarily, right? Because a peak is still a peak. You don't just peak and then go, you peak and then you slowly start to descend down, all right? So we still have to taper off a little bit. But beyond that, and once again, because our peak has been so low, it's not even really a worry about the healthcare system or the the kind of batch of infections that are present right now. Once we reopen the economy, we got to make sure that we stay reopened. Okay, we want to do this one time. We don't want to have to go back and lock down again, like you're seeing, in China, Japan, South Korea Singapore had to go and lock down again. So as I've mentioned a few times before, there's got to be a system in place. There's a system and I've used the term before, a layer of medical services and testing all across society that you've never seen before, the type of shit that you see in movies. And we need that implemented so that we can prevent, that we can go from flattening the curve to smashing the curve. And so if you're to look at some of what those implications are. Okay, and this is something that's been concerning a lot of people. I really need to start scrolling up to the top of these things. Okay, Apple and Google building a coronavirus tracking system into iOS and Android. And guys, that's exactly what it says. Like, the government's going to be tracking you via your phone. That's just a reality here. And, there's a lot of privacy concerns. Oh my God, how can they do that? Well, they can do that because it's the government and it's the legislature, okay? The legislature are lawmakers, so if they make a law, you have to abide by it. And the key and the purpose of contact tracing is that if someone tests positive, you then go to their cell phone and use GPS data to see who they were around within the last 48 to 72 hours before they tested positive, then go and identify those people so they can get tested. And I'm sorry, I understand the privacy concerns. I get that some people, you're wondering, oh my God, the government's going to be tracking me. They're already fucking tracking you guys, first off. And I'm sorry, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. We're not just going to reopen society and you're going to get to go about your business. And if you're feeling sick, you go to the doctor, you go get a test, and everyone's no, like we're all in this together, and you're going to have to accept that you're going to get monitored by your phone for this purpose, right? And I'm sorry, we're not the only ones doing this. Look, South Korea, who's handled this situation very well. South Korea is using cell phone tracking and smartphone tracking to keep citizens quarantined. And I mean, South Korea is a democratic nation. This is not a totalitarian nation. South Korea has a government that is very well regarded and treats its people very well. And they accept that in this emergency scenario, which is a war of a certain kind, that they have to accept some government intrusion into their life. And that government intrusion is, if you test positive, they're going to keep track of you and make fucking sure that you remain isolated in quarantine. If you test positive, they're going to see who you were around the last couple days, so they know. Who needs to get tested as well. And that's inevitable. If not, there's too much risk to reopening society, and you're going to see, oh my God, 1,000 new infections today, 2,000 new infections today. Now we have to worry about shutting society back down again and going back to lockdown. And we don't want to do that. We want to lock down one time. One time is the key. Maybe we'll have to do, some specified selective lockdowns. Okay, maybe if there's an office building or an area that tests positive at a high rate, you might have to lock down that specific area. But in terms of total society, we're going to have to accept some degree of government intrusion into our life through contact tracing over the next, hopefully only 6 to 9 months, but it could be a while. So keep that in mind. Another company that you should check out, and something that is super interesting. Gil and Eitan Elbaz. I'm friendly with Eitan, but these are the guys that essentially were behind Applied Semantics, which was the technology that ended up becoming Google AdSense. Gil Elbaz has a company called Factual. Factual that's what they do. They're a data company around collecting GPS data, but doing it in an ethical manner. And so ethical GPS and ethical contact tracing. Listen, guys, it's happening. They're going to be tracking you via your cell phone. So we either have to accept that and then hold them to a high standard and make sure they don't abuse it and and make sure that they implement ethics, or it's going to be a real big problem. So I think everyone needs to get comfortable with that at this point. And, like I said, other countries are doing it, so don't fucking bitch that much. Okay. All right. To the larger point of contact tracing, which is just one piece of the regime that's going to be in place when we reopen society. And I'll send, I mentioned it on my story today, and then I linked to these 4 different studies that give a few different perspectives. Like I said, if you want to go to my Twitter, you can find these studies. But, you got one guy who put together a really comprehensive set of principles for reopening society, is Paul Romer. This is a super interesting thread. Whoops, sorry about that. Okay, so you got to test everybody. Look at that. You got to presume anyone who's got symptoms already has it and they need to self-isolate. Okay? Gonna have to test millions of people a day. Millions, okay? When you say, oh, we can't test that many people, that's it. Mass testing of American citizens for this virus is just a fact of life for the foreseeable future. Just much like the contact tracing, just accept it. So those resources are available. If you're interested in what the future holds and what round 2 looks like, I highly recommend that you guys read some of these studies. The American Enterprise Institute study, Scott Gottlieb, who I've mentioned a few times, he's the man behind that, super smart. It's a bit of more of a right-wing situation, but not terribly. And there are some from a variety of different political perspectives, you can see those resources. Okay, so beyond that, let's now go back to our old buddies, the Chinese government. And there was a really interesting piece done today. Andrew Sullivan was a guy who, he was the first generation of bloggers at the beginning of the internet, 2000, not the beginning, but the first phase of blogging and publishing on the internet, 2004 to 2009-10. Andrew Sullivan had the most highly trafficked and most well-respected current affairs and political blog called The Daily Dish. Fucking just brilliant guy. And he's tailed off over the past 7 to 10 years, but he still writes a few columns. And when he nails it, he really nails it. And so he did a column today. And this is a guy, he's super anti-Trump. He thinks Trump's a complete fucking totalitarian. He believes that, I don't necessarily believe in some of the fucking Russia stuff, but Sullivan does. So he's not a guy who is inclined to be sympathetic to Donald Trump. But he's also a smart guy and he's an even-handed guy, and he knows that anyone who's being honest now can see the culpability of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government and the World Health Organization and what transpired here. So this is a piece, I kind of summarized some of it on my Facebook, and so this is what he was saying. Okay, so look at that. January 23rd, okay? The Chinese government didn't lock down air traffic from Wuhan until January 23rd. Okay, look at that. They were already 2 months into the situation. They knew what they had on their hands. They didn't lock down outgoing travel until the 23rd. And look at that. Oh, sorry. How about this? They only locked down travel internally, and they continued to let outbound travel go on. So essentially, China, as late as January 23rd, where they were already about 6 to 8 weeks into the situation, they said, okay, we know that this is internally very dangerous, so we're going to not allow flights or travel from Wuhan to the other parts of China, but we're going to allow travel from China to foreign nations. What does that tell you? It tells you that they had no regard and no consideration whatsoever for the rest of the world. As Sullivan puts it, he goes, essentially, the Chinese government said to themselves, well, we're going down. We got this problem. Everybody, we might as well bring down the rest of the world with us. So if you're looking for conspiracy theories, or you're looking for, what did the Chinese deliberately send this virus out into the world? It was partially deliberate, right? Because I don't think that they started this initially. The initial seed of it was not deliberate. But once it was already out, once the cat was already out of the bag and Wuhan had been infected and there was an outbreak there, they took deliberate steps that were deliberately put the rest of the world at risk. And, Sullivan, he explains it really well here. I highly recommend you go read this piece. And he's essentially saying, listen, look at that. We had this communist country, and we thought, in the 1992, 93, 94, you had this communist nation, China, that had immense economic potential, but a really shady government. It was a communist nation, terrible human rights. And so the Western world went ahead and said, something, we're going to take the risk. We're going to let them into the World Trade Organization. We are going to try to integrate them into the Western world and Western economies and start shifting a bunch of our manufacturing there. And the whole idea was that, okay, if Economic liberalism is then going to translate to governmental and human rights liberalism. They figured that, hey, if we integrate them into the world economy, they're going to clean up their act. And they did to a little extent. They're not quite as vicious of a government and a totalitarian nation as they once were, but you still see what they are at their core. And at their core, they're propagandists. They care nothing about human rights. And when push comes to shove, they will not prioritize the goodwill and betterments of the world. Or as Sullivan puts it, they are not a responsible international actor. It's not a responsible international actor. So if you're looking, obviously, and I don't like talking about Donald Trump because the second you mention the name Trump, everybody's fucking brain goes to mush and they can't think straight. But if you're apportioning blame between Donald Trump, the United States, and the Chinese and the World Health Organization, it's just no fucking contest. We all know who the original bad actor was here. And we know that because you translate that to any other country other than the United States. Go look at Spain, go look at Italy, go look at the UK, go look at Iran, okay? All these countries have suffered immense destruction because of what happened in China. Okay, so you can't go and try to find equivalency and symmetry in the blame between all the other foreign nations and China. Okay, we fucking know who did this. One further proof to that concern and about how we need to handle this and how we need to recalibrate our supply chain and manufacturing worldwide. Japan has a prime minister named Shinzo Abe, and I'm a big Shinzo Abe fan. So look what the Japanese are already doing. Japan is going to, part of their bailout from the coronavirus is to provide $2 billion in relief funds to their factories and their manufacturing. See, it's $2 billion of economic stimulus just to help its manufacturers shift production out of China. There you have it. Oh, it's racist of you to impute all this blame to China. Oh, it's not China's fault. Well, go ask the Japanese. The Japanese sure seem to think it's their fault. Taiwan knows it's their fault. Japan knows it's their fault. South Korea knows it's their fault. So, I think what you're seeing right now, and the reason that I have a fairly bright, where I see some silver linings coming out of all this, is that I think the world is going to band together and say, we can't be as dependent on China as we've been the past quarter century. I mean, like you're seeing it right there. Japan went in already within 2-3 weeks. They've taken initiative and said, we are going to provide financial support. And I'm sure more than just that, we're going to provide financial support to our companies so they can leave China and not have to rely on cheap labor and easy product sourcing from China. And so you're going to see a lot more of that. You're going to see a lot of it in the United States. Depending on the election, if Donald Trump gets reelected, you're going to see a ton of it. I'd imagine, and I would hope, if the Democrats win, that you will see a lot of it from them as well. But that's what the future holds right now. People are going to stop. The days of cheap bullshit from China, it's not happening anymore. All right, Japan. Okay, what do we got here? Yeah, and another one we already saw. That in 2019, some of the decoupling from China had already occurred. This is a study in Forbes. It's a little outdated, but we'll take a look at it too. All right. Okay. All right, some more pretty good news. Chad, I think I'm already banned in China. I think it's pretty much, I'm not going to Beijing anytime soon. Okay. Some other mildly, cautiously really good news. I'm now talking to multiple super smart people in the pharmaceutical world, in the biotech world, and they all say hydroxychloroquine is real deal in terms of the treatment for the coronavirus. It's not some magical cure-all. I'm sure Trump is overstating it because that's what he does. He's a fucking carnival barker. He's always going to overstate the impact of something that he thinks will have a positive impact, for better or for worse, whatever. From what I'm hearing, hydroxychloroquine is absolutely a valid and effective treatment for the coronavirus particularly if you get it early on in the cycle. Okay, so a really interesting storyline around hydroxychloroquine. There is this doctor in France who's kind of like this celebrity doctor. This has become a whole crazy storyline. He's kind of this eccentric, long-haired, French guy, and he's just been pushing the hydroxychloroquine, pushing it. I think he's in Marseille, and unless he's lying through his teeth, he's getting amazing results. Check this guy out. His name is Didier Raoult. Hold on one second. Check this dude out. Didier, I mean, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but whatever. So yeah, he has become a celebrity in France. He's become a French celebrity, and that there's this movement behind him that he's pushing the hydroxychloroquine. The French government seems to not believe him and is not as much of a believer in it as is trying to push back. There's a lot of conversation around what the politics of that are. Are they pushing back on it because they want to hoard all the resources because they don't believe in it? But either way, and from what I've seen, and this is from the Johns Hopkins website, hydroxychloroquine, what it does is, it reduces inflammation. That's why it's used to treat rheumatoid arthritis. So hydroxychloroquine, the impact is to reduce inflammation. The problem with the impact of the coronavirus is just shooting your inflammation in your chest and in your lungs through the goddamn roof. So anything that can prevent that from happening is going to be useful. So from what I hear, a combination of a Z-Pak and hydroxychloroquine early on, before the symptoms have gotten really bad, will act upon the virus in a way to reduce it and reduce its spread. And I know everyone's favorite topic, viral load. Okay, so it will keep the viral load manageable, so your immune system can act upon it, and it won't ever really get that bad. So check out the stories around this French dude, Didier, whatever his name is. Super interesting, and these are people I trust. These people are super smart. I think hydroxychloroquine is going to be a key component of treating Noah. I don't know about chlamydia, my friend. Steven Schaefer. Andy, anyone who can guess my brother's middle name, let's see what those guesses are. You're not going to guess it, but you get some sort of prize because it's going to be fucked up. Sandro Dazan, you are correct. Zinc, so zinc, Z-Pak, hydroxychloroquine, those are the items that so far we're seeing have a really good impact. Jonathan, Trump and Sanofi, that's fake news. Okay, so here's the story. Donald Trump it turns out Donald Trump owns a blind trust, which means he doesn't even know what the trust invests in, holds an interest in a mutual fund, which holds an interest in a company called Sanofi, a French company that produces hydroxychloroquine, and everyone's, oh my God, that's why he's fucking pushing the hydroxychloroquine. Give me a freaking break, man. It's a generic drug. It's not a profit driver. Donald Trump is going to make $300 freaking dollars from pushing hydroxychloroquine. Just get off that one. There's enough stuff to go criticize Donald Trump about. You don't have to come up with fake news. But hydroxychloroquine, very promising. We're seeing some good news. Let's get into some of the economic stuff. Is super interesting. And I know that I haven't been harping too much on the government bailouts, the effect on the economy. It's just there's so much stuff to absorb, and there's so many topics and so much information. It's hard to wrap your mind around all of it. But here's an interesting one. Consumer Price Index. Man, we are going through an insane deflationary spiral. So yeah, our concern right now is deflation, okay? Everything, I mean, obviously, not fucking rocket science. Cost of gas is going down. Apparel's going down. Airline tickets going down. I mean, this is not, oh wait, we'll get to my brother's middle name in a second. Less people are spending less money. The velocity of money is turning over at a much lower and much slower rate. And that creates price drops, man. I mean, we are seeing deflation after a decade where I think we saw phantom inflation, where the price of a lot of items, like overall, John, don't worry, I'll get back to raging about that because it's a marker of American decay. But either way, reduction in prices of consumer prices, I think, is going to be an interesting story to see if that holds, because the economy, as we've mentioned, it's not going to just come back in a second. It's not going to come roaring back. It's going to be a slow hog. You're going to be pushing a fucking boulder up a hill. So as the economy comes back, does some of that deflation, does some of that downward pressure on consumer prices and consumer goods, does that stay? I mean, it's gonna be a really interesting storyline to follow. So we'll have to see. As opposed to some other topics, I do not have a firm prediction on that, but we'll see. Okay, real quick, Andy Belinsky's middle name. You didn't see this one coming, guys. You didn't see it coming. Frederick Frederick, not even just Frederick, Frederick with the C, like he's French. He could be related to that French doctor guy who's pushing the hydroxychloroquine. You never know, they could be distant cousins. I don't think that anyone saw my brother's middle name being Frederick coming. So now that we've got that out of the way. Okay, next issue. Last week I talked about the heat theory, that there was a kind of eerie consistency that all the places that broke out all happened to be cold weather, that you were not seeing any breakouts in warm weather in the southern hemisphere, which has been summer recently, that Florida was a really interesting place to watch because, everyone saw that video of all the spring breakers. But then I was like, wait, hold up a second. Let's see what's going on. Went and checked the weather reports, and it's unseasonably high 80s and low 90s in Florida that week. And I was like, okay, wait, maybe we got saved by a heat wave here. So heat theory's looking pretty good, guys. Heat theory's looking really fucking good. Okay, here's the Florida numbers, if they'd come up. Okay, there we go. Okay, Florida, once again, they did not lock down till late. Okay, way after California. Everyone was criticizing Florida and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for locking down late. They're like, oh my God, there's going to be a major outbreak. They're not testing enough. As they test, you're going to see that Florida just fucked up. I mean, whether it was from skill or from luck, it looks like Ron DeSantis in the state of Florida is doing okay because that's 18. They test. There's a lot of They've tested just about as many people as California, and California has double the population, and they have just about the same cases. 18,000 hospitalizations or 2,500. That's nothing crazy. Listen, once again, we're not trying to make light of anyone's death, but 419 dead in Florida. That's it. ICU rates have gone down, and I mean, if you look at it, it's all concentrated, mostly in Miami, Coral Springs, and West Palm Beach, Broward County, where all the old folks' homes are, and the numbers there aren't even really that intimidating. So. It's looking like, that's a good supportive evidence of the heat theory that, once you get temperatures into the 70s and the 80s, it really suppresses the spread of the COVID virus. There's an article, a little more in Florida. Yeah, so it's starting to come out. People are already seeing a downward trend in the Florida curve. Yeah, that was from a couple days ago. Distancing measures are working, but long story short, Florida seems to have avoided any major breakout, even having decided to implement social distancing kind of later on. There is another article that I found really interesting. I think you guys should all read on that addresses the heat theory directly. The New York Times, when it decides to be honest, which it sometimes does. All right, look at that. Weather may slow but not halt it, which I think is a good way to term it right there. All the breakouts so far are regions with low temperatures in between 37 and 62 degrees Fahrenheit. There you go. This one right here. Look at that. MIT, wherever the temperatures are colder, the number of cases started increasing quickly. Yeah, you're looking at Arizona, Florida, Texas have slower outbreak. Dr. Birx, whatever the fuck her name is. Okay. Yeah, same thing as the flu. So listen. It's like we see with the flu. It's like we saw with SARS. It's like what we see with pretty much any virus. It does not spread as quickly in warmer weather. There is zero territory that is warm weather that has had an outbreak. Not one or two. Zero. Nothing in the southern hemisphere, nothing near the equator. It's fairly incontrovertible, but you don't want to get cocky about it, Chad. You don't want to get cocky about it because once again, it doesn't eviscerate the virus, but it does help manage the spread. And so that's something that seems to have been proven out pretty nicely. So, another situation is you're starting to see California has decided that we're going to be in lockdown till May 15th. I'm predicting that in the next couple of weeks, they're going to announce that May 15th will be the day that there is an initial plan to reopen in California. The latest I see them pushing this is to June 1st. But you've already got Texas planning some executive orders for guidelines to reopen. Okay, so All right. Something, politicians are politicians. They're going to talk. They're going to be, if they're smart, they're going to be very tactful. So look at that. I mean, we want to protect lives while restoring livelihoods. It's a pretty reasonable sentiment, right? Can we do it? We're about to find that out. We are about to find out whether or not, someone's going to be the first to reopen. Some state, some politician or some governor is going to have the balls to be needs to have the balls to be the first one to do it. They're putting their ass on the line, because that you have to understand how much of the conversation, how many of these predictions and policies are governed by politicians covering their ass. Because think about this. Nobody wants to be the first one to reopen, because you know what happens if you're the first one to reopen and it ends up being the wrong decision and there ends up being another outbreak? Your career is over, okay? If any of the governors to go early and be some of the first to open their states back up and their economies back up, it turns out to be the wrong decision and they don't have a plan in place to manage the spread and prevent another lockdown, they are done. Okay, we all know that. If you don't think this is in the back of all of their minds, you're crazy. They're definitely thinking about this stuff. So that's through a bunch of issues so far. I'll give you guys some time to start, seeing who is bold enough to try to hop in on the live and who wants to join it. See, Steven Schaefer asked a little earlier. That was not I probably should have made it a little more clear that I wasn't going to take requests till 8:30. But let's see what we got in the comments right here, guys. Yes, Alex, the Trader Joe's mochi is amazing. Who is going to be so bold? Will it be Tony Daly, Dean May? Who knows? All right, we can move on to another topic for a minute while we see who is going to have the balls to jump in here. All right, an issue that's going to be near and dear to the heart of a lot of people. I know, maybe I've imagined Peter Sussman, at least the rumor is that Peter Sussman is on this topic. Burning Man has been canceled. Burning Man has been canceled. Fuck. We will not be hitting the playa this year, guys. This was going to be my comeback year at Burning Man. I needed to take a year off after 2 guns blazing years, 1 Rookie of the Year and Sophomore of the Year, if that is even possible. Brent, something. The comments are here for posterity, so you always got some time to shift to more. Okay, let's see. Hey, little slugger, let's check it out. Let's see what we got here.
There he is.
What's up, my man?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. Just drinking a little bit of wine through the time, man.
It's Friday night. Might as well.
There's really shit else to do.
Pretty much. I've tried to repurpose my time as best as possible, but
hey, I gotta tell you one thing. We've never met each other.
We have not. Me and this gentleman. I don't even know your real name. What's your real name? Miles.
Yeah, it's actually really nice that you're putting the time and effort into just explaining your point of view and bias or not. Look at the haircut my friend gave me the other day. Faded me up real proper. What a dark time. What a dark time. But no, it's just nice to get like information from somewhere, and you do a very good job at not making it so people have to take it and be offended by it. It's just
thank you.
It's like a put your checkers in and we'll see where we go.
Yeah. Listen, man, this is the way it was supposed to be. Somewhere along the line, we lost sight of this, and it just became this fucking battle royal of fucking idiots seeing who can out-idiot each other and appeal to just the most loud, vocal, bad faith actors on their own side, and just that doesn't benefit anyone.
I come from I'm looking at it from a different point of view, where I just am a lot softer into the night, where it's like they're like, today I went to the store and got the red wine, and they're like, you put the mask on now, and I'm like, well, goddamn, let's see if there's a shirt in my car that doesn't make me throw up on myself. But it's super. There's people that are attacking it in knowledge and what they're like understanding. And then there's people that are just accepting it. I'm more on the accepting thing, just because I don't have the fight in me, which is why I will listen to what you say, and just
Appreciate
kind
that.
of go. I just like the, oh, okay, just to know a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
not to have an opinion, not to do whatever. Because right now, you know, I've heard stay at home and be safe so many times. I, I, I,
It
I think
starts
I'm
to
gonna
lose
do. I'm
meaning,
gonna,
man. Yeah,
I'm gonna
it's
do it forever.
definitely it's tough. It's tough. You hear a lot of generic catchphrases, and they start to get a little annoying. But you know,
Hashtags.
we're in
People are hashtagging out here.
a Miles.
Stay
Just real
home,
quick,
be
what do
safe,
you what?
be normal.
Since we don't know each other other than in the digital world, what do you do, and how did you find your way into swimming in this pool?
Now,
You're not okay.
I mean, no, not really. Do a bunch of stuff, but it's we're all in the pool. You know what I mean? We're
Sure.
all. It's the reason that I like kind of caught on to it is just it's undeniable what's going on, and if you have that like wave of knowledge and the ability to educate people on a level that is comprehensive to them, it's kind of like endearing to me. So
I appreciate it.
I kind of liked that, and I kind of liked the authenticity and the non-bias. You did. I don't know what kind of news people will sign you, but you know, maybe you can start doing some news stuff.
We'll see, man. We'll see. You know, I think there's definitely some interesting doors that are open, and people are getting more and more, you know, open to an unbiased, you know, pure informational way of presenting the news. And so, you know, we'll see where this goes. But right now, I'm just taking it day by day. Dude, I appreciate you hopping on in here.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Your sign off right there and the way that you're positioned, you're already ready for the job.
Like to believe I'm a natural, but
Hey,
we'll see where it goes.
little
Miles,
red
thank you
wine.
for coming. I appreciate that, brother.
Cheers, bro.
Okay, so let's see who else is so bold as to hop on in, but not to be all self-congratulatory and whatnot, but and thank you, Andy, you were early on it, but I was gonna say that, you know, I don't, it's my honor to do this stuff, and it's I don't want to sound like I'm being joyful in a time when a lot of people are suffering, but this is what gets me amped, man. Learning stuff, encountering super interesting information, and finding a way to kind of package it. I just find this stuff endlessly fascinating beyond. So, you know, it motivates me, and you know, in a lot of periods, it there's varying degrees of value to, you know, being able to just see a lot of a lot of situations from different angles. But this really, you know, is my pleasure, and so I'm glad that you guys appreciate it. Well, Christina, well, if you want to hop on in, by all means, the floor is yours. See if I got any topics that I skipped around on. Oh, okay. This is an interesting one. No, we're gonna go into this topic for a second, guys. Okay. Um, there is a guy who's an online persona named Mike Cernovich. He is most famous for being associated with Pizzagate. So a lot of people who get associated with strange situations, with conspiracy theories, whatnot. I've gone ahead and I followed this guy a while ago just because I heard a couple podcasts with him, you know, right before the election in 2016. He had a super interesting perspective. Dude's a little weird, dude. You know, he's aggressive. He says mean things on the internet, but you know, as you know, I'm not exactly opposed to that. But one of his topics is that, you know, it's kind of about how mainstream news and mainstream media are totally full of shit. Okay, we know what their tricks are, and this entire situation exposed what their tricks are. Their favorite trick is that putting a headline is clickbait and having an article that doesn't support the headline. They love that one. Falsifying footage, and pretty much creating concerted attacks to go smear people and ruin their lives for the most part. So Cernovich did a documentary called Hoaxed. Hoaxed is essentially Hoaxed is essentially a breakdown of this topic of how corporate media and mainstream news manipulates how they manufacture consent. Manufacture consent being a fairly prominent term from Noam Chomsky. And if you want to see where the far right and the far left kind of connect, it's stuff like this, where a guy like Noam Chomsky, who's pretty much a socialist and a super left-wing guy, he understands that there's an entire architecture of information out there to suppress and mislead. And then you've got, you know, some right-wing people like Mike Cernovich, who also happen to intersect with them there. So Cernovich did this documentary called Hoax, pretty much in a very nonpartisan, non-right-wing, non-right-wing way, going ahead and breaking down how media lies to you, how they manipulate, and a lot of the ways that they get things wrong, like, oh, stick a number, the word expert, and then, oh, experts say this. It's totally false. So anyways, we're obviously in a situation right now where Hoaxed, his documentary, is very relevant, and look what happened. Amazon Prime decided to censor it. So Amazon Prime decided to take down Hoaxed from it's taking it off people's accounts, and you cannot buy Hoaxed on Amazon any longer. They essentially went and censored this documentary. So if you're wondering these information wars and this battle over who gets to communicate the truth and what the truth is, maybe you want to look into why Amazon and these big media companies find pretty nonpartisan documentaries on media manipulation to be so threatening. I think that's a really interesting topic, and I think you guys should look into it a little bit. All right, let's check some comments. Andy, I'm going to have a massive show next week on China. We're going to do a lot of we might have a full show on China and the kind of history and timeline of China fighting a one-way war against America next week, but not so much China this week. Who else do we have? Okay. OL Beast, QAnon. Some wild stuff, man. I don't think it's aggressive. There's some views that are super far-fetched in QAnon, but we've seen weirder stuff happen. There are a lot of conspiracy theories, things that you had said them at the time would have turned out, people would have thought that you were nuts, and they turned out to be 100% true. A friend of mine, I don't think he'll mind me say that he's a bit of a QAnon, I wouldn't say a supporter, but he checks it out every once in a while. My buddy Eric Amadio, he is a writer. He created a show on FX called Snowfall. Snowfall is a show about how the CIA and the FBI were running drugs and crack cocaine into American inner cities in the 1980s. In 1982, or even up into the early 90s, had anyone heard you say, oh, I think the CIA is running crack cocaine into minority communities in the inner city, they would have essentially said, you're fucking out of your mind. You know what? It turned out to be true. So don't discount all the conspiracy theories, even though QAnon, I think, should be handled with kid gloves here. All right, let's see what we got. I think we got Bread and Seals.
Oh, hey, buddy. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, bro?
Hey, so I was the one who sent you a message about TikTok saying,
okay,
I forgot how TikTok in China was like so fucked up as it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to the point. So I used to be Donald Trump's personal valet at Mar-a-Lago in West Palm Beach.
Woo! We get the right guests here at BNN.
Right, it's great. I know. And I have no fucking clue how I followed you. Maybe we can. I don't know. I can think about it. But question is, not a Trump fan. I don't think you are either. You've been, I think a little bit non-supportive of him, but supportive in a way that you didn't expect to be. Right?
I'll break it down. I think he is directionally correct on a few big items, which is unfortunate because his personal characteristics are so negative.
It's unreal. Unreal.
But he's directionally right on a couple big things.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he absolutely is. I mean, the World Health Organization with China and them being I guess arm in arm, so to speak, has been absolutely an absolute fucking disaster. But if you could talk to that a little bit, I mean, it's just been nothing but the best coverage I think I've seen so far since this entire whole debacle went down.
Mm-hmm. So obviously, to the extent that you are clear to say, anything that you gleaned from your years working to the extent you're comfortable revealing any interesting Donald Trump stories, information, or perspective.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the funny thing, is because back during the election, right? So I worked for him, whatever. I worked at Mar-a-Lago, was his like personal valet, like got to meet tons of celebrities, blah blah blah, whatever. When he started running for president, I was getting constant phone calls, emails, text, whatever, what have you, from different journalists, all trying to find the worst dirt in the possible world you can ever consider on him, right? Oh, has he ever had sex with a Eastern European girl and got her pregnant? Like shit like that, right? Absolutely terrible. And none of it was true, right? Here's the thing. Like, I didn't vote for Trump. I also didn't vote at all, period, because I just did not agree with Trump or Hillary. But
I hear you.
To my perspective, I didn't vote for the guy, but I worked for him. And everyone was trying to just completely just destroy him, like traipse on his name, absolutely stomp on him in whatever way they possibly could. So I was getting call after call after call saying, hey, what, like this and that about Mr. Trump. I said, look, there, you can say a lot of things about Trump, but there's one thing I can't, like, I would be honest with you, I could. Like, I have no fucking problem, no worry in the world about being honest about if he was a total cocksucker asshole.
Mm-hmm.
I only have the best things in the world to say about him. He was always nice to me. He was always kind to me. He would come up to me at the end of the night and he would say, hey, JC, he knew my name. Hey, JC, you did a good job. Really appreciate your effort tonight. Here's $100 bill. Boom. Every night, like, I got my tips, right? But then, he'd come, when he was in town, wasn't always, like the Red Cross banquet or anything like that. He'd come down and say, hey, great job, guys. Really did a good job tonight. Here's $100. Boom, 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 boom. Each of us.
So, what you seem to be saying is something that a lot of people have noticed about Trump is that, like, listen, he's a bit of he's a goon. He's a loudmouth, crass. He's from Queens. He's a rich guy, but he is almost kind of like a child who doesn't know better. He's not really an ill-spirited guy. And, the thing is, like, the guy did construction. He was building buildings. All his construction workers and the people in his network seem to say some pretty good things about him. And so I think what you're saying is that, like, there's been a strange eerie, despite him being a odd figure, there's been a strangely concerted effort to bring him down that doesn't seem to align with the behavior. It's like, wait a sec. It's the analogy that I always use is Donald Trump keeps on stealing a Snickers bar from the gift shop, and they keep on trying to put him in jail for triple murder. You know what I mean? Would you say that?
Oh,
yeah.
I mean,
so listen,
look, as a non-supporter, non-supporter, whatever it is, it's absolutely true. I mean, the thing is like, yeah, he's not the greatest fucking guy in the world. Like, I think we all agree on that. But is he like right about like fake news and people just trying to absolutely destroy him for no reason? I think
it's a little weird. So so I got one other person who wants to jump in on the live. So before you go, give me, the people want a little, to the extent that you are gonna give up a little story. Is there any story that is kind of a little, would be interesting for everyone to hear?
Yeah, actually, about Trump.
I mean, you were the guy's driver, for crying out. You had to have seen some shit.
Well, there's a lot. There's but the thing is, they're like none of them are like that. None of them are that fucking bad. Like there's so here's like the let me turn this around. Okay, that's bad. Here's like the worst thing that he ever did.
Okay.
Ever. Okay. The worst. Okay. Well, look. So actually, there's some stories before that I started when he was single, before Melania came along, where he would like all the guys that worked there. He'd be like, "Hey, come out," and be like, we gotta, there's some Hawaiian tropic models down Miami. Take the bus,
Okay.
go get them, bring them back. That's like that's a pretty well-known story. Hawaiian tropic models at the pool. Everyone's hanging out till late in the morning. When I was there, the worst story that I have about him is, had big banquet. There's two actually. It's two. One's bad. One's hilarious. So the bad one is he it was like the Red Cross banquet. One of these big ball galas deals where he raises a lot of money for charity. Like this is like a $4 million raise for charity event, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's about 400 cars waiting, and we're all trying to park everybody. Everyone's in a fucking classic car that takes a goddamn hour to park. And someone, some handicapped person in a wheelchair comes in or whatever, and it's taking a goddamn hour because Mar-a-Lago is a very historic building that you can't there's no handicap entrance, right? And so we have like a gate type of situation, and we have to bring it over. And then Mr. Trump comes out. He sees the line of cars. Everyone's pissed off. They're calling him, right? Like, what the fuck? I can't get in. Like, this is bullshit. I pay $100,000 a year to belong to this club. And so he comes down, and the handicap ramps up because we had to pull it out. And he goes, get this fucking I don't care if the person's handicapped. Get this fucking handicap ramp the fuck out of here immediately. Okay. And so that was like the one thing.
Dude, my man, dude, hey man, I love you for fucking jumping in here. We are gonna be asking you for more content. We're gonna be asking you to compile some notes. Okay, so this is not the last of your responsibilities.
Right. Absolutely. Hey,
what was your name again?
JC Glancy, Austin, Texas. I think I followed you from people in Palm Beach that you were I think you were in Aspen with some Palm Beach people, and that's how I followed you.
I'm big in Palm Beach, baby. I'm big in Palm Beach.
Well, hey, I'll see you at Kachina anytime, okay?
Absolutely, my man. Thank you for joining us.
All right, later, buddy.
All right, brother. I mean, come on, man. Where else are you just gonna hop on a live and you're gonna get Donald Trump's limo driver from Mar-a-Lago to hop in? Now, listen, we'll get some. JC is gonna come back. We're gonna get some of the real dirt out of him. Don't you worry, guys. Who else do we got? Anyone else got anything interesting to say, to talk about it? OL Beast, yes, it is. Oh my God. This is a lot of fun, guys. Okay, the drive-through test centers and the antibody tests, JP. Yeah, no, that's in the future. That's happening, man. That's happening. The drive-through tests, antibody tests are already happening. Okay, and the antibody tests, I'll give it up. This is one thing that I may have underestimated, is how many people have the antibodies. The antibodies may have spread farther and wider than I thought, but not by a lot, by a little. This whole thing, herd immunity, that's what we're going to talk about the rest of the time. Thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, so this study, you got a couple academic types. Who are, Oliver, request again in 3 minutes. Academic types that are suggesting that the reason that California is doing so well is that everyone already got the virus. That 80% of California already got the virus, and all those people most of the people who got it developed the antibodies, so they're immune now, and California's fine. And not only did we not break out, but we're never going to break out. I think that's bullshit. First, it just does not line up with the data from any other hot zone, right? So all the hot zones broke out within a 6-week period, late February through early April. Italy, Iran, France, Spain, New York. All of these territories broke out within a 6-week period. So if you're telling me that the virus was in the United States in November and December and all of these other places, then why did all the territories break out at the same time, right? Why did it all go within this period of 4 to 6 weeks? That makes no sense. Also, in every other territory of the United States other than New York and New Jersey, New York and New Jersey, as they continue to increase the tests, you are seeing a consistently high percentage of people testing positive. New York, it's about 42%. New Jersey, it is 50%, which is pretty wild. So what does that tell you? Is that yes, in New York and New Jersey, there were a ton of people who had it that you are now capturing as positive tests because you're testing more people. California, that's not the case. California is the percentage of positive tests is coming in at about 12%. So if this whole herd immunity thing with all the antibodies, all this bullshit is true, why, as we increase testing, is that not capturing more positive tests and just skyrocketing the amount of positives? So I don't buy that for a second. It doesn't make that theory falls apart as soon as you look at all the hot zones. Because if everyone has it, if all these people have it in all these territories, if all these people have it in California and all these people have it in New York, why is New York testing positive at 3.5 times the rate that California is testing at? And why does New York have full ICUs, full hospitals, and a bunch of people dying, and California isn't having any of that? Okay, that doesn't make sense. The herd immunity theory does not hold up. It was something for a bunch of fucking eggheads over at Stanford to get some attention, and no, just don't fucking. Johnny knows the wishful thinking. We don't have herd immunity. Okay. We got 4 minutes left. Oliver Ressler, if you want to hop back on, we might get a minute or two in there. Give it a minute or so. India, we're gonna listen. That's slow on the come up. It is another warm territory. Okay, wait, Ressler will get a minute in there. Correct, Danielle. Does not explain California. Ho!
Mr. Belinsky.
Mr. Ressler, what's up, buddy?
I've got a couple of messages. One for the people on the live stream. One, Hag Sameach, happy Passover to every Jew on the live stream. Two, do not let your mother and brother shave your head. They generally tend to do a bad job, but that happens. You and I have spoken a bunch about this. We've gone back and forth. Intellectual sparring is always fun. And you talk a lot about the virus itself, and I love that because I think that that's step one of what will end up invariably being a 3-step process in this world, which is opening the economy back up, and then what I like to call the new normal as step 3 of what real life looks like post-coronavirus, whether this is yearly, all of the things that are too soon to tell.
Sure.
I actually want to talk to you about a couple of things that aren't talked about by many people right now. And one of those things is Russia. Want to understand a lot about the bullshit coming out there, or is it bullshit? And two, I want to talk a little bit more about why the media doesn't pick up what I believe is the most amazing thing about a lot of this, which is the public-private partnership going on in the country.
Great point.
Right? For me, we are in an election year. And as a registered Democrat, I was sad to see a lot of people so divisive, so angry at each other, who are supposed to be on the same side.
Right.
I hate politicizing the coronavirus because I think it stops everyone. People that want to get pissed off at Trump can get pissed off at Trump all they want. Doesn't help. Doesn't help your aunt. Doesn't help your uncle.
Man.
Doesn't help shit. But for me, the politicizing, what it does is it takes away from a simple fact, which is this country is exhibiting one of the most amazing examples of public-private partnership the world's ever seen.
Yes.
And I want to know more on what you think about public-private partnership and how it can fix things.
Okay. We're about to come to the end of that first hour. So, okay, I'm assuming I can, because I need to make sure that I save this one. We'll let this hour run out, and then I'll fire it back up, and you can jump back in, and
Let's do it. That's fine by me.
Let's do it. All right, everyone, I'm going to end this, and I'm going to pop it back on in just a minute, okay? Matthew! Not another hour, but we'll get one more topic in there, guys. See about Ressler. Okay, so, all right. So what we were just talking about with Oliver Ressler, who is coming back in right now. Okay, so all right, I have a lot to say actually about this topic. When we had the I want to call it the inflection point on the coronavirus and just accepted that we were going to have to shut down, accepted that we were going to have to change the country, and that this was a big deal. That was around March 10th to 12th, and I was more of an optimist than most people at that point because I understood that I'm a World War II fucking nerd, man. I know more about fucking World War II than any human being should know, period, ever in the history of society. Okay, and I see what the American economy can do when it's all directed it's pointed in the right direction. And what happens with increasing industrial production or whatnot is that once it's all about opportunity costs, right? If we're going to shut down society and change the way we live like that and direct all of our efforts towards one problem, which is increasing medical capacity to solve this problem, I mean,
Yep.
oh my God, of course. So everyone's like, you know how many fucking people told me when I said that we would be testing at levels per capita base of South Korea within about a week from when we shut down initially? Fucking a bunch of obnoxious fucking know-it-alls laughed in my face. My
Yep.
estimate was even beaten by a day. We got there one day quicker than I estimated, okay? Because America has massive, massive, massive industrial capacity. The problem is, in normal times, we're making bullshit. We're making, anything from crappy cars, TVs to this, that, and whatever, and a bunch of consumer stuff that we don't need, which is fine. I'm not a class warrior. It's not a big deal. However, once those opportunity costs are gone, okay, because there's no point in making all this other shit because there's no one to buy it, or you can't use it, and you're forced to direct all your efforts towards this problem, you're going to see amazing things happen, and that's what we're seeing. You're seeing, all these companies switch at just rapid, insane paces into products that are effective and efficient and necessary for us to solve this problem in partnership with the government. And once again, the Trump bad, he gets up there and talks like a fucking idiot. That's the Trump bad. Donald, stop talking. It's fucking scurrilous and immoral and unethical for you to be talking about your ratings in this situation. Shut up. Donald Trump good, he knows the value of private-public partnerships and that, in some sort of synergy between the government and private business, go and address problems and increase industrial production. And there have been some amazing things in that regard. One situation in particular, the governing policy on that is called the Defense Production Act, which he initiated.
Yep.
And I've said it before. Donald Trump hires some very stupid people, but he also hires some very smart people. Peter Navarro is probably the smartest person that he's hired. He's been probably the smartest member of the Trump administration since day one. He's one of the very few people have survived since being hired.
Of course. And by the way, here's one thing I'll add even more on top of the fact that the public-private partnership discussion isn't explained more, right? It has a lot to do with what goes on with the unemployment rate in this country and the ability for people that work part-time and or full-time at companies to apply for unemployment. A lot of people don't understand that the bureaucracy of the government over the past 25 years has created, what is really one of the largest job machines, job creators, and job assisters in the world, right? It's one of the most amazing unemployment programs the world's ever seen. And what's interesting about this process is the media likes to harp on who's furloughing people, but they're also not asking the questions on why. There's a lot of people that benefit from the $600 extra that are going to be received versus staying on a job that refuses and or has no ability to pay you. So at the end of the day, those are the two things for me that create such an importance on why the public needs to understand the private and why the private needs to start trusting the public. And I think that the equation doesn't ask enough of either side.
Yeah, yeah.
Finally, here's my question that's a little bit more nuanced is when you talk about a new normal, I look at the world as a pre-vaccine and post-vaccine.
As you should.
Right. And I think that when a lot of people talk about what a post-vaccine world looks like, I think a lot of them are trying to forget the fact that there was a pre and post-vaccine world in the flu where there were double the amount per capita of deaths than there are of the flu today. People need to understand a little bit more about what that world's going to look like and why social norms need to change. You know, I spend a lot of time in NBA arenas, right? And at the end of the day, shaking hands makes no sense. Touching doorknobs makes no sense. The ability for hospital-type sanitization for a lot of products makes no sense. So at the end of the day, the world itself is going to change in a cost structure of large gatherings, and a lot of those businesses are going to need to understand how to change. Where does the money come from if you're not allowed to bail out certain businesses that cost structure at its basis is going to be upended?
Yeah.
That to me is something that I think is worth monitoring for a lot of people on the stream right now who love going to large places. You want to go to that next concert, you want to go to that next Laker game, I understand. But understand this as well, and please hear me. The end of the day, the way that the Lakers spend money on your safety is going to change. So your ticket prices will change. The way that your Blink-182 concert will fucking change is through the pricing model. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to try to keep people safe, it's going to change the cost structure of how businesses operate.
Without a doubt.
And for me, that's one of the most interesting things I've been tracking is people talk about reopening the economy. What is reopening the economy?
Yeah.
Is a restaurant going to be allowed to open people up 3 to 4 inches next to each other, 6 inches next to each other, 12 inches next to each other? What does that mean for profitability? What does that mean for the ability to keep part-time workers or have all of your wait staff? At the end of the day, the new normal's coming, and people don't want to admit how different it's going to be.
You saw it earlier when I was talking about contact tracing. I mean, yeah, man, we all have privacy concerns. We all don't want the government all that much up in their business, but here's the thing. They're already somewhat up in your business, and they're going to, and tech companies are already encroaching on your privacy. And we've survived with that thus far. And you know, for better or for worse, if there's a justifiable reason in the value, in the cost benefit, if you balance the fucking books and the cost benefit works in one way, that if done properly, the asymmetric risk of not doing it is so high that you have to take the risk and let the government monitor you like that. You got to fucking do it. You got to do it.
And by the way, I just saw a great question, and it's from Channy Online about not having health insurance tied through your employment. And this is interesting because I'm one of the biggest anti-Bernie people, and a lot of my friends know that. And it's for reasons that I'll speak to anyone offline about it. But the truth of the matter is, Medicaid for all, extending some form of basic health care to anybody who wants it, but allowing people who can afford and or a business who can afford better health care to buy better care for people is the only way forward in this country. It doesn't make any sense that you have it one way or the other, because people always like to talk about Nordic countries. People always like to talk about places that have 1, population control, and 2, demographic control. These are issues that the United States will always deal with, whether we like it or not. If people want to go move to Sweden, I urge you to understand and look around every restaurant you go to when you're in Sweden. You will not see much diversity, and you will see a lot of similarity. And the truth of the matter is, when you look at any form of DNA, any form of similarities in groups of people that have been together, Jewish people, African-American community, the Albanian community, whatever it is, the truth of the matter is there are health similarities between a lot of these people. And that tends to dictate a lot of the way health policy is created. The United States does not have that ability.
Correct.
It's fucked up, but the truth of the matter is, when you do the math, there are 40 million people out of 320 that actually benefit from American healthcare. What's the right answer? 40 million people don't get good healthcare and we just say fuck you to them? The simple answer is no, you can't do that because it's wrong. But at the end of the day, can you also say fuck you to 290 million people who can go to the doctor and be healthy? And be healthy and get healthy and stay healthy. And what's crazy and what we're seeing now is a mix between healthcare and what I would like to call economic imbalance being the forefront of this discussion. Yet we're also coming into a time in the world, and I know a lot of people in larger cities see the fact that a lot of groups that were once disenfranchised in times before a lot of us were born, having more and more access to opportunity and capital. Those two things are some of the most important aspects of how you grow a community's cost basis, wealth, whatever you want to call it.
For
and
sure.
at the end of the day, with the government shutting down, it will actually ban that progress. That's, to me, the saddest part here, is you talk a lot about who this is going to affect. You don't talk about what it's going to affect. And the effect, to me, is that it's unfortunately going to affect progress for groups of people in this country that have earned it. I'm a wealthy white Jew. I haven't earned it, right? And anybody who knows me knows that I'm willing to admit that. But the truth of the matter is there are groups of people that have earned it that will be negatively impacted by a lot of people playing the politics on this. And it's going to be really shameful.
Well, you know something, I'm not quite, I certainly understand the issue you identify. I'm not going to be quite as pessimistic, because the other thing is, in moments of great, and this is what, how old are you, Oliver? You're younger than me.
27.
Okay, you weren't around for 2008. Okay, I was unfortunately just young enough to not know what the fuck I was doing. I was not established. I didn't have any capital. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to take advantage of that. However, during periods of great disruption, massive opportunities come, because, you know, when you're pushing when you're just grinding up against incumbents in different industries, different ways of doing business, when you're trying to sell new people on new products and disruptive businesses, listen, it's no coincidence that many massive companies were born out of the years 2008 to 2011. Okay.
You and I are in complete agreement.
Yep. So there's gonna be, unfortunately, I think you're gonna see Matt, from the historically marginalized communities that have been accumulating more capital and more economic power over the past, I'd say, 20 years, although everyone thinks it's only happened in the last few years. They've been gladly, thankfully, acquiring more capital. I do think the fact that some of those people, some parts of those communities have already established themselves and now are sitting on some capital, is going to create a lot more opportunity for there to be a force multiplier of what they've done out of this phase. I'm telling you, because I'm already seeing it. You and I have talked a little bit around some of the new business models and new ways of doing business that might spring out of this situation. But I'm telling you, it is going to be pre-corona and post-corona. The changes are going to be unforeseen. They're going to be like you could never have imagined in a million years. So I think you're now, because minority communities have accumulated more capital, they're going to be in a better position to take advantage of this disruptive era than they had been in prior disruptive eras. Because, you know, it's feast or famine right now. Either you adapt, you attack the new space, you attack the new points of demand, or you're fucked. End of story.
Yep. Well, and by the way, here's another thing that I want to bring to light for a lot of people here. You know, my buddy Christian's on, and he's trolling, but he's actually a really smart kid. And we talk a lot about what capital means in this world, right? And at the end of the day, why capital matters. And what's interesting is any company that goes to the market right now looking for funding looks desperate, no matter what their cash position looks like, right? And I think it speaks a lot to the economy and herd mentality. You talk about herd immunity. Let's talk about herd mentality when it comes to the economy and what's going on. And I think a lot of people understand basics, don't understand what access to capital really means. And the access to capital bit right now is going to be one of the things that I track going forward, and that a lot of people that I speak to who I revere with regards to economics are going to be tracking. Because the ability to weather a storm is less about how you perform and a lot more about what your balance sheet looks like. And today, or 1,000 points yesterday, or went down another 45 points. People don't understand that the more you look at your 401k, the less you'll actually understand about what's going on, because it's really, really, really tough, unless you're a day trader, to understand the movements of a market, when if you look at the actual stats, and this is one thing I would love you to bring up next time you do BNN, is the percentage change in the first 5 minutes of the market opening each day and the last 5 minutes of the market closing each day versus the, 7 hours in between?
Yeah.
And that craziness shows that everyone reacts from news from the day, puts in nighttime trades, and at the end of those nighttime trades, it changes the market prior to knowing any news about the day following. And that's one of the things that, I love about private markets is there's no way to do that. You have to prepare a business to operate for a longer period of time. And that's why I think it's a more representative view to look at why rates are so low, why they're going to stay so low, and how that's going to create a problem for companies in a credit crunch going forward.
Did we lose Oliver there?
No, I'm here. Those are the types of things for me, understanding why there could be a credit crunch and understanding access to capital that are going to be by far the most important things when it comes to step 2, which is restarting the economy. And then my final part before I let you talk, because you're better at it than me, is understanding what new normal will mean and how that impacts businesses that we've come to know and love. That's one thing that is going to be, I think, the hardest for a lot of people to accept. The way you live your life will change. It's similar. Exactly. And the fact of the matter is, I've spoken to friends, and even I fall into the same thing myself, which is I want to go back to the way I lived. I want to go hug friends. I want to be able to live a life that I was accustomed to. But the truth is, this is just different.
It's not happening. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, understanding that the world will be different going forward will really be the difference between haves and have-nots in the business world.
Absolutely.
People that want to accept what the world is going to be like will operate and adapt. People that don't and continue to fight it will unfortunately either be in businesses that don't reward them for it, or will be lucky enough to be in an industry where it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
those are all great points, and your contributions. And this is a topic that I wanted to, somehow got lost in just the plethora of other relevant items here. And because the spread of the virus and where this was going was kind of top. That was the high priority item. I haven't gotten around to the economy as much as I've wanted to. But that's where we're headed, and that's where the conversation is going to head. And I think to unpack your core point a little bit more. Listen, every business is based on forecasts and projections. Okay, you're expecting this is how many employees I'm going to need. These are my costs. These are the expected revenues. These are the revenues that I can expect from conducting business in this manner. Here's what my capital outlook is. Here's what my burn rate is. Here's when I'm going to have to raise more money. Here's the likelihood that I will be able to raise more money. All of that is now blown to smithereens. Okay,
100%.
Yeah, you don't know if you're going to be able to even not just from a financial perspective, but even if you have money, you're going to think like, oh, wait a second. I was optimized at X employees before this. I'm not going to be able to physically have this many customers. So now I can't support that many employees not because I can't pay for it, just because it doesn't make sense. It's not a rational way to do business.
And let me add another layer, because you're a lawyer. And this is one thing that I've spoken to about it with a bunch of lawyers. The litigation that will now come as a result of force majeure provisions, as a result of collective bargaining in general, as a result of unionization of jobs and the ability to hire and fire, is going to be one of the most important things in the legal world, in my opinion, to track. Understanding how people are litigating, what goes on with their workers, understanding things. Look, I live in a sports world. When you look at what Wimbledon does, when you look at why the Olympics didn't do it, understanding that pandemics are the one thing that can hamper your business, understanding how you insure these products, understanding if insurance companies will even do that. All of these things are going to be super important that I wish people would talk more about, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel, kind of whether we like it or not. And it's going to be fucking sad because a lot of people are going to die as we're walking through the tunnel. It's the saddest thing. My uncle's in the ICU right now on a ventilator. It's really sad.
I'm sorry.
At the end of the day, it's hard as shit. It's my dad's brother. I love him to death. But at the end of the day, he's fighting for his life, and that's all he can do. This affects everyone. We know that the virus will affect. The real question is, what happens after? And I care more about planning for after, because I can't myself, because I'm not a doctor, do anything. And that's been one of the most frustrating things, is a lot of people in a good financial situation have asked me, what do you do to help? What can you do to help? And I've asked a couple of doctors who are friends of mine, and all of them say, just don't say you're going to help research a vaccine. Don't help say you're going to fix the problem. Send us some fucking food and make sure that we're happy at a place that we're not happy to be at right now, because it's hard and it's tough. Send us the best thing we can get.
Yeah, there are. Our healthcare workers are the soldiers of this battle. Okay, there's going to need to be a fucking GI Bill for healthcare workers coming out of this. Just like, hey, if you went and fought in Europe and in Japan in the East in World War II, the country, the country understood the risk that you took and the sacrifice you made. When you came back here, it took care of you. Okay, and they said, we're going to give you, we are going to reward you for your sacrifice and give you a leg up in life. Okay, with healthcare workers who are putting themselves right in the line of fire right now, we're going to have to do the same thing. Okay, every healthcare worker that had anything to do with at any facility that had any sort of high infection rate whatsoever, because listen, we can't just be printing money and giving money to health people who are nurses at Kaiser Permanentes that are shutting down and furloughing workers because there's no one there. But after a certain threshold, they're going to have to just say, what was your salary last year? We're just going to throw you an extra year or two of salary. I mean, these people, we cannot just let these people go back to their lives like they did not go above and beyond.
Without a doubt. By the way, and it also sheds light. There's a guy named Mark on here. Mark, everyone loves him. He's homeschooling for the first time, right? When you talk about teachers and education, when you talk about K through 12 education, the discussion now is not going to be how bad the teachers union is, how good private schools are charter schools good? The truth is teachers should be paid more. And however you can get there, charter schools being the ones that can pay more right now, might change, is going to change. Same thing is with doctors, right? At the end of the day, the biggest problem though, and this is pointed out to me by my roommate, she's from Canada, right? And basically the United States has what one would consider the best doctors with the least amount of ethics, if you go by the numbers, right? So we have the highest percentage of medical malpractice. Why is that? And the truth is, because all of the fucking incentives are wrong. Yeah. And that's the biggest issue we're working with here is young people are finally realizing problems exist in the world that we didn't want to look at. Because young people are generally healthy. But once one of your loved ones gets sick, yes, the zit is from my unibrow, Mark. And at the end of the day, when someone gets sick, it's the only time you realize that this cost structure is wrong on both sides. Yeah. One, insurance should pay for more if it can, if you buy more. Two, the doctors shouldn't overprescribe if you're not that sick. And that saves money for when you are that sick. Kat, I'm 27 because my dad's really fucking smart, unfortunately. It actually makes me feel like shit sometimes, but whatever. And the truth of the matter is, look, at the end of the day, all of these problems were brought to light by Bernie Sanders, and I think a lot of people should appreciate that. But there were no solutions brought forth, right? And that's where the interest to me lies in educating people on why these things are happening and then how the virus will bring to light some form of positivity. Yeah. So I'm going to take off from that point. Okay. So pretty much essentially one of the biggest issues with business and is friction and inertia. Okay. Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's partner, who is not as prominent as Warren Buffett, is not as rich as Warren Buffett, but in as many realms of the galaxy is more well respected than Warren Buffett as a thinker. Charlie Munger, I read a talk that he gave. It was about how what happens in business is that no matter how business is, the more people you add, the more inertia and friction occurs because every person can only make so many decisions. As a decision gets passed on from one person to the next, it becomes the decision gets made less optimally and less efficiently. Okay, and so that's what happens just across an economy as well, right? As an economy gets bloated and grows, you get so used that these practices become so ossified and so stagnant that it just gets incredibly difficult to change because no one wants to take the risk. So you have to inject risk into it some way, somehow, or else no one's going to be incentivized to change. And what will be the silver lining of this situation with the coronavirus is that we have broken down and we have injected so much risk that the opportunity cost to change now, the opportunity costs to stay the same are now higher than the opportunity cost to change.
And that is what is going to lead to the acceleration of some of the things that we needed to happen in the upcoming era.
Couldn't agree more. And I think
Yeah.
that that's going to be one of the interesting things to track is what businesses adapt first.
For sure.
Because
and
that
so,
is going to expand things.
without a
Take me
doubt.
off.
And so, yeah, so just to finish up, because we got to go in just a minute, but education is one. You know, my mother's a teacher. I am obnoxiously, I went to the fucking Ivy League school, I went to the fucking law school, and, you know, I did not exactly, I don't think highly of my experiences there. So, you know, and seeing the cost of education skyrocket over the past 30 years, for really unjustified reasons in my mind. I think colleges are bullshit for the most part of this. You go pay $35,000 so you could have a fucking rock climbing wall in your gym. Who needs a fucking rock climbing wall in every goddamn gym? Anyway, so education, that system is pretty much being blown up right now. One thing that you may or may not be aware of that we discussed on the podcast, the group chat with D. Murphy and Drama and Anand Murthy the other day, is that South Korea, you want to know, I think private online education is going to skyrocket. Do you know that in South Korea, one category of influencer is education influencer? There are online private teachers who are influencers who make $2-3 million a year.
By the way, we've had that in this country. And there's two guys that did it, the Khan Academy and Wikipedia. And neither of them were given the adequate response from a numbers perspective. Neither of them made nearly enough money than they should have. And that's a damn shame.
Yeah.
The Khan Academy and Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the fourth most, I think it's third now, the third most visited website on the internet. Right? If you listen, I urge everyone to listen to the Wikipedia, How I Built This, because the truth of the matter is education is not put at a premium in this country as it used to be. By the way, I'm proud to be Jewish because education is a premium in my community. It always has been. And one of the things that's really interesting to me is understanding how this country as a whole takes education for granted until they don't. And Mark points out Trump University. There are certain online educations that are actually well worth it and very good, and I wouldn't bet on them not expanding throughout this process. At the end of the time, you need people to be educated throughout this process, and I think one of the things is you need to also change the risk reward on how you educate people. And if you educate people on a large scale, at the end of the day, you should reward that person for it.
Yeah, yeah. So just to finish up and 100%.
You're right, Avi.
I think you're going to see a shift to a lot of private online resources. Are you familiar with the Lambda School?
I am.
Lambda School is fucking great, man. A computer science, pretty much a focused private computer science only education with no tuition that you pay back once you get into the job. I mean, we need more of that. And it's unbelievable. And the type of flack that Austin Allred from the Lambda School gets, if you want to see why we're in the situation that we're in, see how a guy who's gone out of his way to be innovative, to have guts, and to create opportunities for, Andy, Lambda School is fucking amazing. To kind of bust up and disrupt the education model that is stagnant and ossified. And the type of shit this guy gets, who the fuck looks at this and thinks this is worthy of criticism? Yet he gets shit on all the time. It's unbelievable.
We live in a union. We live in a country where unions matter, and where a lot of these things really do take a political turn. And a lot of those issues end up coming to light when somebody tries to upend what is a union-driven business. It generally has happened throughout time, and you look at it and you see it, and it's just the unfortunate truth of this country sometimes.
Totally. So listen, Oliver, phenomenal job. You took this conversation and BNN in a direction that it was destined to go and needed to go. We're going to be talking way more about business, the new normal, who's going to be the winners and the losers in the economy as we go forward, and how to be in one of those categories or the other. I'm sure we will be having you back on sometime soon. You know, we'll try to plan out a discussion, although this seems to have gone really well, you know, with us running the No Huddle offense here. And Oliver, is a pleasure. Everybody else, enjoy your Friday night.
MB, I'll drink with you any day. You let me know. I'm around. And the truth of the matter is what you're doing is helpful. And I wish there were more people doing it like you.
Thank you very much, man.
Cheers, brother. And Hag Sameach.
Thanks so much. Everyone have a great night.